cope with them.
No, my question.
Forgive me.
No, my question was like caste is a present configuration also. Would you say?
Of course, it is there.
And
See,
also the present systems are also configuring caste in the same
you see,
manner.
the question is that I have never agreed with Nick Dart's kind of formulation when he writes castes of mind, that as if castes are created only by the modern enumerative techniques of the British, the colonial government, etc., that it has to do with breaking down people into population, part of which is all these are true. But if one says caste is because of that, you see, it then takes away the entire political economic question of, power and powerlessness, the question of hierarchy, the question of private property, all those things which seem to be much more fundamental. You may say that in that sense, that I speak in a different language, but that is what it is. Fair enough that governmental technologies create categories, but at the same time, please see, there is an argument also to bridge the divide, and as I say, both the arguments are important. One is what Charles Tilly argued in Durable Inequality, one of the most fascinating books about studying inequality, where Tilly says that political economy is important. However, inequality is a production of a certain kind of organization. And he gives the example of, say, huge supermarket. And there are several gates in the supermarket. And how quickly you reach a particular cash counter where the line is less will depend on the gate that you have chosen. Now, it will all depend on, therefore, the gates that you have chosen. One. The other is that once you have chosen the gate, you will find, he said, that studies of supermarket have shown that once you have chosen the gate, you will find that the huge supermarket with its, large built-in area, you will find groups of people assembled at different, places. Some where the hardware corner is there, some where the coffee vending machine is there, some where people are actually waiting in queue to have the meat chopped in a particular manner, etc. All this you get, which he says that the categories are reproduced therefore. So the categories are reproduced, so inequality as a category is reproduced. So the government may do huge enough of things to remove the category of the black and white in the United States, let us say. But this is what he termed as categorical inequality. In other words, inequality is in the very process of the production of categories. So this part is. And it's a wonderful book. It's fascinating. On the other hand, if you think how the private property is reproduced, I remember once in a discussion with a friend of mine, I say, if there is no land and landed property in the way in which it remains, what remains of caste? And immediately I knew that I had told almost a blasphemous thing, that I shouldn't have spoken of it. Immediately people will say, again, the fundamentalist Marxist speaking out, etc., and therefore thinking that bourgeois relations will therefore be over with caste. Far from, I do not want to say that. But at the same time, we have to see what it is that produces the caste relations. And at the same time, what it is that while reproducing the caste relations also affects changes in that. That will be important. Because on that will depend the question of our freeing ourselves from the shackles of caste.
When you see in your academic article, you were also vying for a Bahujan Samaj.
Yes.
And what is the significance of that?
First, why did you choose that name? And second, could you tell our viewers a bit more about that?
See, why choose the name is an easy answer, everybody will understand. Now that Mayavati and Caste, they have made it popular, so I did call it. But at the same time, you can invoke the word Bahujan in two ways. One is that the majority of the people. So Bahujan. The other is that it means the same but in a different way, that it is a it is a formation, popular formation, that is covering most of the groups. I have used it in the second sense, even though it includes the first meaning. But when I was arguing that, look, in Naxalbari, nowhere in India peasant struggles, and maybe I should, be bold enough to say, even in the urban laboring people struggle, nowhere you will find that the population composition is uniform. Certainly in peasant uprisings this is true, that there are, at least in the modern time or in current time, there are 19th century historians who will probably contest, I don't know. But certainly it is true that in the Naxalbari uprising, Rajbangshis, the Nepali, the tea garden laborers, generally called tea tribes, in other words, the indentured people who were taken to the Doers, the Hills and the Assam in those days, refugees from East Pakistan and other people, they joined hands and created the movement. Now, in a formal Maoist language, one would call this was the United Front of the People, etc. But how I am saying is that it is also important to see from the point of the autonomy of the people who lead the movement, that they got over, they overcame their Rajbangshi identity or their Koch identity or their Nepali identity or their Shautal identity, and created a new identity of the people who struggled. And why is it that the political activists or the Dalits or the scholars who work on Dalits, I'm not saying Dalit scholars, but upper caste scholars who work on Dalits, why do they not take account of this fact? This is where my serious complaint of mine. And same is with the Jaman movement, same is with the Birbhum peasant movement of the early 70s. Why is it that the Dalit, massive Dalit participation is seen always as something which the party mobilized? And why is it that we do not see that no, these people created a kind of a, as I said, that fold is therefore a very good image to invoke. Why is it that we do not take into account that different communities came together in a general framework? That is where the play of the generality and the specific rationality becomes important. It doesn't come into account, and that is where I shall have my pet line, is because of the predominantly cultural framework in which the analysis of caste is done. That is my complaint, that is the main reason.
Could you please explain that? I don't understand.
No, it's simply, the explanation is quite simple, that it thinks that it can explain political economy by culture. It cannot.
So in that context, how do you read this recent quoting of the Motua Mahasangho by the political parties, which has been made so much of? There are newspaper reports, there are academic articles that why is Mamata going to the Motuas?
She wants to get, you see, by this I know, if you make an extreme statement, therefore it creates discussion. So it is good at times to make extreme statement, but at the same time qualify it later on. So I am not saying that there are no cultural imperatives. Indeed, it is important to see that with the rise of what I think to be in some way the lower classes in West Bengal today, which I have maintained in my public articles consistently, much to the consternation and the annoyance of my friends of the left, including my very close friends who work in your institution, that I do think that with globalization, with marketization, with many other changes, certainly there is a rise of the lower classes today. It is not taking place in the desired probably framework. Certainly it is not taking place according to the path charted out by the leftists. It certainly has its own elements of vagabondism, lunacy, all those things that you identify with the world of petty production, as well as several types of, how do you put it, self-sustaining mode of production. People who are engaged with that, it bears all the hallmarks of that, and therefore it's a very populist kind of time. But at the same time, it is important to see how with the emergence of this kind of the politics of the lower classes, you have a renewal of appeal to the different Dalit community, which exactly this happened in the 67. And this is why in my article I mentioned a name which in fact even the CPM doesn't mention today, which was in the Shonarpur struggle, the name of Hajra Shapuri, who was one of the most extreme comes from the Dalit communities. Bibul Kishan was a party member, CPM member. He was an Adhira, he was a Rajbangshi. Again and again these things happen. Bonkim Sheet from Gopivallabhpur, who was again, who belonged to one of the Dalit communities. Intermediary castes also. So today, because it is a non-communist government, not only it's a non-communist force, it works according to a different governmental logic, you can see. But the truth is that appeals to the lower classes have renewed. So part of the explanation will be that. Part, of course, is the explanation of politics, which is that you need votes, you need this, you need that. You will always find out those groups of people who belong to the lower classes and the lower caste to come to that. But the more important point would be, and that is where Shamata, I will throw back the question to you. After that, the politics that they are doing, do you think it's a very caste segmented politics, or once again it's a politics which is aimed generally for winning over all that is considered to be belonging to all lower classes? Because any government in West Bengal, if they want